Welcome to a Degenerate Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest, joined as always on these Fridays by the Professor, who we turn to for expertise on both college football and basketball. But as you've been saying, and I think this is a shared opinion, it's been a rough year for a lot of
Oh
people trying
God.
to handicap college football.
Oh, brutal.
NFL unpredictable. We saw an example of it last night as the Buffalo Bills, every time it appears they're about to get it together, their offensive line turns into a sack of shit. And speaking of sacks, Josh Allen gets sacked 8 times, throws a couple of picks, still has a chance to pull the game out of his ass in the end, just misses barely. And yet, the Houston Texans, who lost C.J. Stroud, was touted as the second coming of Johnny Unitas just a couple of years ago. He's out of action. At the time, the Texans are 3-5. They turn it over to this guy Mills, who's now 3-0, and shows you unpredictable.
I mean,
Is the best way to characterize what's going on.
he's been a very competent backup for a long time in Houston. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not completely shocked he went 3. And I mean, look, are the Bills good? Like, because I mean, you look at some performances and you think maybe, I mean, they could still score, but the defense has been rotten pretty much all year long, and they don't protect very well. I mean, they seem to run block for Cook very well, but they pretty consistently don't protect Allen very well. So I don't know. I, I'm not sure anything on the road in the NFL is that big a shock. I mean, uh, you just when you thought the Chargers were kind of good, they go into Jacksonville and get beaten like a baby seal.
Yes.
Uh, you know, pretty much anything on the road can happen. Except apparently to the Patriots and the Colts. This whole season is very, very wacky
Very bizarre.
in both sports. Again, as we have said for a couple of weeks here, except Ohio State, who has become just an absolute annuity, as I believe they roll to, was it 8-0-1 against the spread, something like that. So other than that, or excuse me, 9-0-1 now against the spread for Ohio State. So I'm the fool because I don't pick Ohio State every week. Like,
You're usually thinking, though, the top teams are going to have to give so many points that they're going to get tagged with a few against the spread.
yeah, again, Ohio State last week was laying 28 plus and won by 32.
Sure.
But I think really you summed it up in one game last week with Oklahoma. A game I took Alabama in, outgained them 2-1. Quarterback threw I think 260 yards in the first half. Final yardage total was something like 450 to 220. But Alabama turned the ball over 3 times and had like near misses on turnovers like 3 other times, and lost the football game. I mean, and this is to an Oklahoma team that as of 3 weeks ago, before the last 2 games, I think had a season-long turnover margin of +1. So it's not like a team that's super proficient in turning other teams over. In fact, up until the last 2 games, they've been bad at it all year long. So, and an Alabama team that protects football well. I mean, it sort of sums up this season. As much as I want to bitch about the playoff committee, and as a Hurricanes fan, I certainly do.
Yeah.
I can't get too mad at the committee because honestly, outside of Ohio State, am I convinced anybody's all that good? Not really. Like, I mean, I think you could probably take the top 15 teams and almost any of them, again, outside of Ohio State, could beat each other in pretty much any given situation.
Well, we saw Texas A&M hopelessly down at halftime to South Carolina.
Was it good luck for that cop to push Nick Harbor? It seemed like that.
That triggered the the turnaround. It's a possibility.
I know he was relieved of stadium duty. How does that dude not get fired as a cop for that? Like, you just went and tried to pick a fight with a 19-year-old in front of 70,000 people and a million more on television. Like, how do you have a job come Monday?
Actually, he got the $50,000 bonus from ICE, so he's now an ICE agent. We'll be seeing him in a ski mask pretty
Well,
soon.
good luck to him if he has to go to South Carolina to pick anybody. Yeah, but yeah, Texas A&M really a great example. Could not have played worse in the first half and then come roaring back. Which given South Carolina's history, probably isn't all that surprising because they've spent pretty much the last 20 years figuring out how to blow games in the late part of the season. So,
They did cover the spread at least. That was
but
one plus.
I mean, yeah, this whole season has been absolutely nuts, and I'm not making excuses within that. You still got to try to find winners, but I mean, again, like as much as Indiana has steamrolled a good Oregon team. Just taking a random example, if you told me Georgia Tech, who's 15, and Indiana are playing tomorrow, and you told me Georgia Tech was going to beat them, I wouldn't call you a liar for it. I wouldn't say there's no possible way that could happen. I'm not saying I think it's likely, but again, outside of Ohio State, who I think has shown enough that you can pretty much bank that they're pretty good, possibly very good. Outside of that, like I said, 2 to about 15, 16, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think pretty much anything can happen in any given week, and I guess it'll probably make for an interesting playoff. We'll see.
You made a great point earlier in the day about the criteria, the considerations that the
Oh,
college
don't even
football
get me
playoff
started.
committee is using, and it's interesting because, as you were saying and illustrated very well, it's not who you beat; it's this whole notion now of quality losses.
And that the whole criteria of quality losses seems to come down to who you lost to, not the fashion in which you lost, but just the name. So, like if you lost to Ohio State 178 to nothing, that's still a quality loss.
Yeah.
And the two examples I use for that, the fact that they dropped Alabama beneath Notre Dame in this, again, Alabama's beaten 4 of your top 25, including I believe Georgia's number 4. Notre Dame, I think, has one top 25 win, and it's number 16, USC. So explain that to me because I'm not really getting. And then Utah, whose best win is Cincinnati, and whose second best win is probably Arizona State, who played that game with their backup quarterback. And oh, by the way, lost by 24 at home to Texas Tech when Texas Tech's backup quarterback played the entire second half of the game. But that's a quality loss. Losing by 24 at home is a quality loss. I have two concerns on 2 prongs. As a Miami fan, I have concerns. Although, look, all the people who are saying, well, Miami needs to take care of the business, I actually agree with you. Like, Miami really has no excuse for the 2 losses they have. If you drop one, okay, it happens. You can't lose two to, I mean, they're not, neither of them are bad teams, but fairly mediocre opponents. You can't lose 2 games to teams you are definitively better than. So I have on that concern. I would like to see Miami make the playoff. The larger concern I have is this quality loss crap sets a really bad precedent where nobody's going to play anybody out of conference ever again. Like, and as someone who really enjoys the out of conference games to start the season, like everybody's going to do the Indiana thing and just schedule 4 directional teams. Doesn't matter what state they come. If Northern Alaska has a football team, fly them on down. Let's play them. If there's a Western Hawaii, fly them on in. I mean, these schools are really, really bad at football. Are going to make a fortune.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants, and it's going to absolutely screw the G5 programs who are trying and have built good programs because nobody's going to schedule them ever. Like, if you're USF, if you're Boise, if you're Tulane, even the service academies who are, randomly pretty good, they seem to be taking turns with who's good, but the last couple of years, both have, nobody's going to schedule you. Like, nobody's going to want to play you because absolutely nothing to gain, no matter how good you are, and absolutely everything in the world to lose.
Is it possible? I mean, the criteria could change so they avoid that. I mean, nobody wants.
Look, there are some people, the playoff committee conspiracy theorists who think the committee is intentionally putting teams between Notre Dame and Miami so they don't have to constantly deal with but no, Miami beat Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I suppose that's possible that they're just trying to kick the can down the road and hoping 2 weeks from now, things play themselves out so the decisions look a little bit less controversial. I don't think these are set in stone by any means. Look, Alabama, as I understand it, and I'm not an expert in SEC tiebreakers, but as I understand it, if second place ends up in a three-way tie between Ole Miss, Georgia, and Alabama, Alabama wins a tiebreaker, they'll go into the SEC title game. Certainly, if they were to win the SEC title game, they would elevate as the SEC champion. I don't know what a Utah could do, frankly. Miami, I don't. The only way you elevate is other teams to lose. Like, you're not getting extra points for beating Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh. I don't think anything. Texas Tech, if they lost the Big 12 title game, that would be pretty chaotic because I think they'd have a very good case to be a second team in from the Big 12. What does it be as a sixth seed? Absolutely not. But I still think they'd be in the picture. BYU has a losable game. They play Cincinnati this week. They probably, will not lose at home to UCF. UCF's, stumbling pretty hard down the finish of the season here. But they have a losable game this weekend, so that could happen. We could see a shakeup, and then you never know. Look, it certainly wouldn't be the first time we've seen absolute chaos of upsets in the last couple of weeks of a college football season. So things by the end of the year may really clear themselves up. That's why the language part of this, more than the actual rankings part of this, concerns me. When you have the head of the committee going on ESPN and talking for 15 minutes about quality losses, that's a problem for me.
Yeah, you would think it would be about who you were able to defeat, much more so than who you lost to. Although, understandably, that's a consideration. It's just the context of it, the way it was explained, as you said, was a little bit disturbing. All right, we're going to look at the card for this week, and of course, it's going to be sensational. We got the holiday week on tap ahead, and there's all kinds of activity, day and night, college basketball and football as well. I know you're starting out. You're looking at this Maryland-Michigan game.
Actually, before we go there, let's drop in college basketball this afternoon.
Okay.
BYU laying 5.5 to Wisconsin. BYU already has a quality win and a game they should have won over the weekend against Connecticut, losing by a deuce in a game where Richie Saunders, who was their best returning player, probably the second best player overall, shot the ball absolutely miserably. And they kicked off the season. I don't know how good Villanova is, but they kicked off the season by handling Villanova pretty well. Wisconsin, on the end, they do come in ranked, and it looks like maybe they can score, but they have played absolute nobodies to this point of the season. So we like BYU here in this spot, particularly with a kind of a weird starting time at 4 o'clock in the afternoon out in Utah. So we'll take the Cougs and their freshman sensation, DeBonsa, to cover that number in Wisconsin BYU this afternoon.
All right, turning to the gridiron here, Michigan and Maryland, I know was one of your plays.
It is. Michigan going in 14.5-point favorites. And I'm not saying Maryland's going to win this football game, but they've actually been a pretty good cover team throughout the course of the season. You look at Michigan, they lost, I believe both are going to be out, although I guess on Jordan Marshall there's a question whether he will be out. I thought if you watch that Northwestern game, it looked like his arm was going to fall off. So he's questionable with his shoulder. I would lean to he's probably not going to play, which means I believe, excuse me, Michigan's now missing the top 3 running backs on top of their depth chart to start the year. They've been missing the one for a long time, but 2 more got injured last week. So, for a team that has struggled passing the football, coming in with very little depth and a true freshman probably going to start the game at the running back position, not a great sign for the Michigan offense, particularly, since they caught a little bit of a turnover bug in the second half of that game against Northwestern. A game, again, if you watch, Northwestern could have easily won that game. Michigan ended up winning on a kick late, but, Northwestern could have easily won that football game. Maryland's been a pretty good home team against the number. Seems like too big a number to me. I would make this game more in the 10 range, so 14.5 looks way too heavy to me. Particularly as long as it stays above 2 touchdowns, I would be inclined to go with Maryland.
All right, you're also looking at Fresno State.
Correct. The Bulldogs come in winning 2 in a row. They did drop a couple in a row before that, including a big upset loss to Colorado State, which is sort of when everybody jumped off of them. But they rallied. They beat the hell out of BYU 2 weeks ago, winning 30-7 in BYU. And BYU started. I mean, excuse me, not BYU. Boise State. Boise did start a freshman quarterback in that game. But still, anytime you can go into that environment and then come out with a win that big, particularly for Fresno State program that has really struggled in there. And then they beat Wyoming last week, again at home. This game will be played at home. They're playing a Utah State team that usually, gets a weather advantage when they're at home. Should be, I assume, a nice, pleasant evening in Fresno. It usually is not a lot of rain in that part of California generally. So, yeah, we like the Bulldogs. 2.5 seems way too thin a number to me. Take Fresno State and lay the points in the nightcap there.
All right, and you're going to wrap it up with the aforementioned Northwestern.
Yeah, been a good cover team. One of the better defenses in the country, actually, if you watched them. Do they struggle on offense? They do. They don't score a ton of points, but they don't let anybody score a ton of points against them either. A Minnesota team as an opponent, I mean, Minnesota's actually been a pretty simple formula. They beat the bad teams they should beat, and they pretty much lose to the good teams they should lose to. You look at their last two of their last 3 opponents, got absolutely blown out, gave 41 up to Iowa. I don't know how you managed to give up 41 points to Iowa. And I think if I remember that correctly, they gave up 31 in the first. I don't know how you give up 31 points and a half to Iowa, honestly. I think Iowa could play by themselves for a half and not score 31. In between that, they beat a miserable Sparty team, but they only beat them by 3 on their own field. Now they go to Northwestern, where the Wildcats seem to own a pretty decent home field advantage on a thin line, 3.5. We will take the Wildcats.
All right, so we have a little 3-pack here of college football games. Maryland getting 14 and a hook from Michigan. Fresno State laying 2.5 against Utah State. And Northwestern laying 3.5 against Minnesota. And the basketball game today, BYU laying 5.5 against Wisconsin. Professor, we might get you on maybe next Wednesday if that's okay with you, and take a look at the Thanksgiving.
It's always a nice Black Friday and then going into Saturday schedule.
Yeah,
and we could talk about the Defo Thanksgiving 3-pack that you always give out.
Always, yeah. I mean,
I haven't even looked. Is there a decent game in the mix this year?
I don't know. I haven't seen the schedule. We know the Lions will be playing, and of course the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, actually, honestly, you got the Packers at the Lions at 1 o'clock. That's a good one. At the Cowboys, that's a pretty good game.
And
the Bengals and the Ravens. Ravens likely to win, but the Bengals have lost a bunch of exciting, up-tempo games. So we'll see. Those could be pretty entertaining.
Could be good. We did have that all-animal parlay many years ago where that worked out really well. So we'll see if it's applicable this time around. Always a pleasure, Professor. You have a great weekend. Good luck. I'll try and get on the right path here as we get through and into week number 12 of the NFL, and of course college football heading towards the postseason and some of the college conference championship games, and basketball very much in play. So thanks so much for being with us, and we'll catch you hopefully Wednesday on the show as we head into the Thanksgiving Day holiday and the weekend. Thanks as always.
Have a great one, everybody.
All right, the professor, ladies and gentlemen, with us here on the program. We wish you guys all the best of luck over the weekend. Should be a lot of fun. We'll be back with you again on Monday. Going to be with you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week, and then take a couple of days off. Maybe a necessity just to try and get back on track here. Very inconsistent season, trying to predict games in both the NFL and college football, as we've said. Hopefully you guys are faring very well. We're seeing many handicappers that I used to consider of having a high level of expertise getting absolutely buried themselves. We're starting to turn a corner a little bit after a couple of freezing episodes on the shows the previous week. So hopefully we'll be able to provide you with some winners and some insight into, and maybe just some guidance into which way to go with your games, even if you're going against everything that we play. For the professor, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll catch you on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.